Right. Right. Morning, all. We'll go again. Drams. Nice to hear from you. Yes. Right. We'll go straight into Monday. Hope you can hear me. People still coming on. And we'll go. If you do your diary, as we said before, very light on the diary front, as most Mondays are. If you're going to have a day off, I'd say Monday's probably your best day of the week. We'll have four ECB members talking this morning. 10 o'clock, Visselroy. Apologies for the pronunciations. 1 o'clock, Weidman. 3:15, Snibel. And 15:30, Hernandez. The highlight of the day, Mr. Powell is talking at 1 o'clock. He speaks three times this week: Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. 2 o'clock, we've got Mr. Barkin out, the FOMC member, along with Mr. Daly, and of course Mr. Qualls later on at 5 o'clock. Quick read through the news. We did most of the news actually out over the weekend was fairly bearish and is in the market, and we'll probably see that coming through at the 8 o'clock opening. The vaccine progress in Europe seems to be slowing down. The Paris lockdown seems to be also negative, and Germany are looking to have a meeting today to extend their lockdown further. Obviously, over the weekend, those of you who followed Turkey, Erdogan sacking his finance minister sent their market down 16%. He did the same a couple of years ago, I think 2018, and wobbled not just these markets, but quite a few markets. Remember, most of Turkey's uh, uh, deals were all done dollar denominated, so bear that in mind. We did say over the weekend that Biden would be in power. Obviously, his spat with China continues, and currently we seem to have a tag team of Japan and USA versus China and Taiwan. So listen to that on the wires. That could be interesting coming through. And obviously, the feud between Biden and Putin escalated over the weekend. Those of you remembered last week, Biden in 2018 called Putin a killer. Nice word to use. I don't know how you retract from that. Any of you who are aware, also Biden in his last 49 years in power, he has voted for every skirmish that America has entered. Uh, the news this morning was probably positive, is that Mr. Barkin, who again speaks at 2 o'clock this afternoon and is a dove very much like Powell, he said the yields that are rallying reflect the good news in the market. And I think that's very much what the Fed are trying to tell us. Don't worry about the yields rallying. Don't worry about inflation uh, because don't worry, be happy. I think some rapper quoted. Right, onto the shared screen here. I'm looking at the DAX this morning, and we see most markets are down from the weekend, but not excessively. It could be another day of cherry picking. Last week was quite difficult on the openings to scalp. Those of you aware of scalping, we're struggling to scalp, and we're getting stopped out. Well, yeah, unfortunately, when we do get stopped out and scalps, our stops are very tight. Uh, Again, if you're trading, you put a slightly larger stop on. So for instance, in the FTSE, you probably have a 20 tick stop. If you're scalping, you probably have a 10 tick or less stop. However, on a Monday, the same thing. If there's no news out, then there's no need to trade. You know, someone emailed me on Sunday saying, "When do you scalp and when do you trade?" Well, that's why the most popular thing we have at the moment, and everyone, the market profile does tend to help. Hopefully, it's a slightly quicker than it has been, and the system slightly quicker as such. But however, I mean, the hardest thing at 8 o'clock is that you want to be on the front foot and you want your first trade to be positive as such, which sometimes when it is fairly quiet, and it might be this morning as such. However, I am looking as much as we tried to be neutral. Yeah, I'm looking to the downside on the FTSE and the indices just because of where we are, and we know that a lot of people are still long. Remember, last week was the first time in 2.5 weeks that the Nasdaq and the Wall Street actually finished down on the week. Not a lot, down 0.6%. I think Wall Street was, and I think the Nasdaq was down 0.8. So that's turned the tides a bit. And coming into the week, that's also fairly thin in the news most of the week, apart from people talking, and we have to bear that in mind. So yeah, so we've got 4 or 5 minutes. We were going to have this morning Bianca, who was going to do the Zoom, but we all know Bianca, her laptop crashed about 5:30 this morning, and she got me out of bed because I was going for my flu jab, COVID jab this morning. So those of you on to one-to-ones, I will be in the queue waiting to be paralysed from my right arm upwards. Anyway, right, head on to the market. We're going to look at the DAX here, and I might just turn this one onto the FTSE to see, put it on 10 minutes, I'll put it on a 5 minutes chart to see if we have any scalping to do on the opening. I think it'll be fairly quiet where we are. We have seen since 6 o'clock this morning how rangy it's been on both accounts, mainly the DAX as such, but the FTSE doesn't seem too untowards. And since I got in 7 o'clock this morning, we've just seen a small rally up in most of the markets. I think if we could try and put the market profile up, I'll try and put that one over here on my screen. And again, the look here, we are just a bit of news that came up. Those of you who's trading, mate, put the news up. Fed speak. There we are. Again, the agenda. Powell speaking 3 o'clock, Barkin 2 o'clock daily, 5 o'clock, and Qualls afterwards. So I mean, that's basically the headlines of today. Not the figures as such, but when they speak. And remember, they're not speaking until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Again, everyone who's aware, the clocks are still an hour ahead in America. We turn our clocks back this weekend. So all US figures at 12:30, and Wall Street is 1:30 until 8 p.m. Again, eyes are on the yields at the moment. This morning, we're just going to see if there is any scalping at the 8 o'clock figure, which is out in a minute's time. I'll keep quiet. I do think we've got Matt doing the Zooms later this week. We'll work it out with him. And obviously, Bianca doesn't get out of it that easily. She'll be doing it later as well. The great thing that we're trying to do on the one-to-ones is keep it as a community, as we have in our discussion group. So it's a good lesson for you to get your confidence going, to tell your other members in our group what you see on the opening, yeah, and why you see it as a price action and why you see it as a scalp, not just on the candles, but also on the market profile. So I'll have a go at it this morning. Sometimes you don't see anything. You say that as well, because it's just as important you're not trading as actually trying to see a price action that isn't actually there. Remember, first of all, in the price, you might see a small buy up 8 o'clock, and then obviously you get a resounding thump down, or vice versa. The secret is to be as neutral as we can on the opening. Again, we look at the news, nothing really out till 10 o'clock. There's a few minor European figures out at 9 o'clock. Again, if you are trading on a scalp, I'd recommend you not to try and scalp 2 or 3 markets at the same time. I'll just stick to the one. We're seeing in the DAX here, definitely it's a selling coming here on that 8 o'clock figure, 11, 12. So as we said earlier on, a lot of the news that's coming out with the vaccines, with the lockdowns, and with, what do we say, the Biden and Putin, does lead me to be short. I'm still short from Wall Street from Friday on the news of the SLRs, which I'm trying to keep short of for as long as possible to trade. Again, whipping that DAX, you see it? Yeah, that's just price action, buy and sell orders going through, and see where we are. But again, the DAX, I think we'd be quite interested to test a new low. I'm going to quickly whack up the market profile for you. I've got on the other screen, which I've been playing with on the DAX. Put it on a GER30. Date is the 22nd. Hit profile. Change that one with that one. Again, if we're looking for the sells, hope you can see the screen. In the DAX, we're probably looking at some decent supports way down here at 146. A little bit of traffic here, 32 up here, bit of battleground here. We see the single prints here. And like we said, in theory, the market did look fairly bearish on the news that's come out. And we've seen that being reiterated quite clearly, yeah, in the DAX. Not right at the opening, but probably 10, 20 seconds afterwards. So nice trade there to be short. And we're going to have another, see whether the FTSE's relative done the same. Yeah, the FTSE's done exactly the same as well. So again, for a change, the price action on Monday, that could be your first trade, good trade of the day, nice clean candles there, and also very nice clean on the market profile. The question you have to ask yourselves, how far do you run your trade? Uh, and how far you take out the scalp. For a Monday morning, we basically say, I think just get green, take some money off the table, don't be too greedy, and have a look at it in 5, 10 minutes. But in all, yeah, I think this morning the news that has come out has been fairly uh, uh, bearish, and we've seen that on the opening as such. So hopefully that was a good indicator to come in. And in theory, if you did trade it, you obviously got your 20-tick stop. The argument you've got then is when do you put your stop down to break even, and when do you take maybe in the DAX? We're looking at from the open here. We're probably already 30 ticks on side. I would wait another 5, 10 minutes to move your stop down to break even. I know a lot of people say you should, but I think if you believe in the trade, and you should have been short. Therefore, you have to believe in your stop as well. So many times we get a rebound up to nearly where we were at 8 o'clock, and you get stopped out. I think it's a lot of retail platforms put that idea into people to move your stop down to break even ASAP, just to get you to trade more. Uh, I'm not moving my stop down again. FTSE nice. FTSE was probably another FTSE probably moved more than the actual DAX. Yeah. So again, uh, we'll go back in a way to your market profile to see where we were on different times. Hopefully, we got in up there in the DAX, and we can see. We've got the queue up there. The queue's a bit slow this morning. Uh, see the queue fairly clean. The queue straight down to the levels here. Yeah. Again, we can't see much the time before on your market profile, what you can do obviously is go to the day before, which obviously will be the Friday, and see what support or traffic we had there before. Again, we're below that anyway. We must go to the next date. So we keep traveling around. So we can use the market profile for the historical data fairly easily. Market coming down here. And the same in theory, if we get the FTSE, for instance, because that's had a fairly, remember, a FTSE moving 50 ticks is a fairly a big move on the grounds that 1% in the FTSE is 67 ticks. So let's see where the FTSE is today on the market profile. Again, Q, fairly fairly obvious, straight line moves. Let's try and go back to see where we can see the FTSE. If we did see any traffic where we are, 6665, go in here. And we may be able to go a bit further down. So you see, we've got to use the market profile historically when we get moves down. Remember, we've had a 2-week rally. So everything is slightly weaker where we are in the market. Anyway, hopefully that has helped you. Yeah. I may be back later in the afternoon. But remember, again, we've just seen hardly any retracement back up, which was quite weird in the industry, because last week, the market came down and came back up. And the first 5 or 10 minute candle went red, green, red, green, red, green the whole way through. So again, yeah, I think hopefully, I know, did anyone manage to get on that scalp?
Yeah, I got on a scalp.
Yeah. And how much you take out of it?
20 ticks.
And I think, in fairness, Charlie, I think 20 ticks was probably the best to take out of it. And it's one of these things that people ask you, and I think you've asked me in the past, that when is it a 20 tick and when is it a 40 tick? And I think, as a day trader, remember, all of us are self-funded traders. To get some money on the table takes you a long, long way.
Yeah, I think that's what I was bearing in mind. It's Monday morning, isn't it? There's a long week ahead, lots of opportunities ahead. So take 20 ticks off the table and leave some for tomorrow, as you say.
I mean, the other thing that you've learned before, I remember saying, is that if you do the multiples, and I know it's mentioned with you, Charlie's been one of ours, been on our one-to-ones, is that rather than do 1 unit, if you do 2 units, whether it's 0.5 or 0.5, you can scalp your first unit for, like Charlie, for 20 ticks, and your second one, you can put your stop in and run it. And it's your second one that, in theory, if the markets, the indices do drop another, say, 50, 60, 70 ticks, that's when you take your extra 30, 40 ticks out of it, and you think, wow, I just made 80 ticks on that trade. But the multiples make you do it. It's very hard to run 1 unit when all you've got is the 1 unit, and to nick it the 80 ticks, because your body and your pocket say, I like to nick 20 ticks out of this and put some money in the bank.
Agreed.
All right. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. And again, a lovely bit of price action in the morning and a good way to start the day.
Yes.
All right, gents. We'll
Thank
catch
you, Neil.
all tomorrow.
Cheers.
Cheers, Neil.
Hopefully those who've got 1-to-1s, I may be back by 12 o'clock, but it depends if I grow 3 heads from having my COVID jab. All right.
Cheers, Neil.
Cheers, Neil.